So many things that you want them to say. No, it don't come to you easily.
Hello, I'm recording this on my phone, so we'll see how much storage I have on it. But I did want to create a segment where I talk about my favorite books that I read during my last semester at college / university, So just to start off, I want to talk about Zula by Toni Morrison. I loved this book so much. It's my first introduction to Toni, so I wanted to really embrace myself into the story, especially since I've heard such good things about not only about Zula but about Toni Morrison in general, and I can't wait to get more into her books and into her whole universe and everything. But Zula was really, it was not what I expected at all going into this. I kind of knew the type of stories that she did previously. Like, I had my own knowledge of the type of themes that she delves into, especially about race, about just humanity in general, about how people are how they think about their mind and everything like that. So being able to tap into Zula was really so special, and I was able to sympathize a lot with not just Nell as a character but also Zula as well. I'm not going to give any spoilers to these books, by the way, but just to preface, this is basically about girlhood and about how female relationships really do affect the way you grow up, especially when you start out being friends as younger girls, or as you grow older and realize that you may be more polar opposites than you think you are. And of course, it also deals with motherhood as well, because of the way Zula and Nell were both raised by very specific mothers who raised them very differently, who treated them very differently. And I feel like that also is the reason why Nell and Zula became the way that they did, and why they became such opposites. And so I really appreciated the way this book was written. I really appreciated Toni Morrison's writing style, and hope that I can learn a thing or two about it to put into my own writing. So I really recommend this book, and really happy to tap more into Toni Morrison's other works, and hopefully I can read all of her books. But I really enjoyed this one. It's a really great introduction to her work, to her writing, and yeah, so that's one of the first books I wanted to talk about. And then the second book I wanted to talk about was Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. This is actually a book I didn't read for class. It was instead a book picked out by my good friend, and she has a running book club on campus, and so I have been a part of it for the past 2 semesters, this past semester being my third a part of the book club, and it's been such a fun community. It was my first time being part of a book club, and I really enjoyed my experience there. And so this semester's book was Martyr, and I did not expect to fall in love with this book as much as I did. I loved Cyrus's character. Cyrus Shams is a character that you follow in this book, along with other side characters, and another very specific character that you get to meet later on, which I don't want to spoil. There's my bookmark. But I don't want to spoil too much, so I'll just leave it I'll just talk about the actual vibes of the book and why I fell in love with it so much. This book just felt like very human, and just felt like it encapsulated a lot that I wanted to put into words myself, about life, about the way people live, about the way people think of family as well. And Cyrus is specifically an Iranian American, and I feel like a lot of other people of color or people from marginalized communities can very much relate to his experiences living in America as somebody who is part of a marginalized community here in this country. And it was just a very special book that I think a lot of people would love. Even if it's your first time reading a book like this, it's very easy to get into. The writing style is mixed with both philosophical thoughts, but also mixed in with humor as well, so you still get entertainment out of the story. And I think that's what Kaveh Akbar did really well with his writing. So I really truly loved his writing in this, and he emphasized the characters really well. He did Cyrus's character was really easy to sympathize with, but also like understand like his growth and why before at the beginning why he was doing certain things wrong, or why he was dealing with certain amounts of like mental health issues as well. And I just really appreciated my friend for introducing me to this book. She had read it actually the first semester that we met, and then like a couple semesters later now I'm reading that exact book that she was raving about in class. And I think that's such a nice full circle moment. And so I just really appreciated this story a lot more than I thought I would, and I will forever be reading the story throughout my life because I feel like it's the type of book that I will be coming back to forever and ever, especially since the themes come from family, from being an immigrant, from being a person of color in America, for having to deal with mental illness. Like, just there's so many themes that anybody can relate to, and I feel like that's what makes this book so unique. And so the writing style itself also backs up how amazingly the story was written. So I have so many notes on my tabs that I marked. I have so many annotations just because I literally every single page I annotated in this book. Like, I had so many thoughts and so many things to say in every single chapter, and it was so well written. And yeah, so shout out to my friend for introducing me to this, and I think anybody who picks this up will love it and will find anything to relate to, especially when it comes to the characters that Kaveh Akbar was able to bring to life so well. For the third book that I'm going to be talking about, it's Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, and this is actually my second Jane Austen book that I've read. 2 semesters ago, actually like this time last year, I read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen for the first time in the book club that I was talking about before, where I read Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And so this is my second time reading Jane Austen, but this time it was for a class actually. And so I really loved Pride and Prejudice. I became such a huge Jane Austen fan from not only the 2005 movie adaptation, which is one of my favorite films, but also reading Pride and Prejudice was so interesting, and like being able to see her writing in that specifically, aside from the film, like the characters were just so amazingly written. And I think she also did well with like the humor aspect, entertaining the reader when it came to the talks of society, the way characters moved out and about. So I think Sense and Sensibility was a great second book to get into, because it's not as popular I think as Pride and Prejudice, but I was still very excited to read it. And so getting into this universe in this book, I really enjoyed all the characters. Once again, no spoilers, but I really emphasize a lot with Eleanor's character, especially as the older sister, as one myself. But I really love how much Jane Austen writes about sisterhood and about like siblings and stuff like that, because I feel like not a lot of books that I've read personally talk about like siblings, like sibling dynamics, which is something that I've dealt with a lot in my own life. And so being able to dive back into another book about sisterhood, about siblings, and just like family and society life in general was really entertaining to read. And I feel like Jane Austen did that really well. My professor that I did for this class also gave us so many well thought out ideas to talk about with others in the class, and a lot of people had their own interpretations about how how Jane Austen was able to write about family dynamics, and how not only siblings but parents influence the way that children turn out, because Eleanor and Marianne are sisters, but they're two very different people. Even though they come from the same family, they were raised the same, they're only about 2 years apart, they're still two very different people, and they both experience life different ways. They both have their own expectations when it comes to relationships, when it comes to how they want to be viewed in society. And I think it was very entertaining to read, and it raised a lot of philosophical questions about life and how one moves through their own expectations of how things should go, just because of what family says, what other people around them say, what friends say. and stuff. So it was very entertaining. Another Jane Austen book, of course. I absolutely love her, and shout out to my best friend who got me Emma by Jane Austen as a graduation present, and I will be reading that one very soon. Very excited for that. So I'm continuing on my Jane Austen journey and can't wait for that. The next book I'm going to be talking about is an honorable mention. It's going to be Ulysses by James Joyce, this hunk of a book. I don't have any tabs in it, but I did in fact annotate the passages that we talked about in class with my professor. So it's the type of book that you need to read multiple times throughout your life in order to understand, which is something that my professor also stated, because she understood how harsh this book might be reading for the first time. But this was my first time diving into anything James Joyce, and my professor is a huge James Joyce scholar, so it was fun reading this with her for the first time. I'm really happy I had her guidance through it all, because I would not have been able to get through this book without her. And something that another fun thing that she did was she had pins made for the entire class that read that said I read James Joyce, and so we can all have that memory of reading this giant book for the first time and being able to finish it all the way throughout the semester. But yeah, I will definitely be going back to this book throughout my life, trying to understand it and everything, because it is a lot. But first of all, there's not going to be any spoilers once again, but I do want to talk about how Stephen and Mr. Bloom are such interesting characters to me. I was always there was always anticipation on if they were ever going to meet at all, and I think that's one of the main things that kept me going in this book, because both of their lives intertwined so much in this book, and there was always something going on. By the way, this all is in one day. This entire book is all in one day, so many things happen, and it's just like it makes you question about how life can get so chaotic in just one day, and how so many things could happen, so many things can go wrong, so many things can make you start questioning your life, your motivations, your goals, and everything. And it was just such an interesting read altogether, because I did not know what to expect when going into this book. I've heard great things about it. I've heard people loving James Joyce's writing. He's like a very famous Irish author, so it's just very interesting to me. It takes place in Dublin, Ireland, and I've always wanted to travel to Ireland, so it makes me want to go there even more. And this book was genuinely so amazingly set in that space, because of how much we learned about what James Joyce was doing in order to capitalize the city of Dublin and just like that island of Ireland. It was just the way he was able to capitalize the setting so well to understand how these characters were traveling throughout the book, and how it was possible that all of this happened in one day. And so Stephen and Mr. Bloom as characters were really interesting to read, just because they were so sympathetic, but also it made you think about humanity and how people are human down to the bone, and they will do things that make you question why they did those things, and then you're like, wait, it's because they're human at the end of the day. So it was very interesting read. I would suggest reading this with multiple people if you can, because it is a lot to take in as one person, and I feel like there's so many different interpretations of how people talk, just of the dialogue, the way people do certain actions, why a certain thing was written a certain way. The episodes are not called chapters, actually they're called episodes, which is what my professor emphasized so much on, is that they're not called chapters, they're called episodes. So every single episode was written in its own like writing style, completely different from the other, and James Joyce truly put so much thought into this, especially when it comes to how different each episode felt. And I think that's what keeps the momentum going of reading something this big. So I really, really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to continue reading and interpreting things my own way. And I encourage you all to do that as well, but with a group of people or people who will appreciate reading something like this with you and being able to interpret things a certain way and give you different ideas of why the characters do what they do. Yeah. Also, honorable mention, my Mr. Bloom bookmark that my professor handed out to me. She gave everybody a specific bookmark for Ulysses, just to encapsulate reading this, because it really is that big of a deal of a story. So yeah, shout out to Mr. Bloom.